Colorado head coach Deion Sanders has made 10 coaching changes. Let's talk about the revamped Colorado staff.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the business. Let's talk coaching changes, Coach Prime finding people, and Jordan Seaton. He finally committed. Let's talk about where he ended up. But let's dive into the coaching changes. I'm excited to see that Coach Prime really listened to, I guess, his gut. I would say listen to his the feedback that a lot of people around the program were giving him was, hey, you need to make changes because hiring your friends to be your coaches and to be your staff members wasn't working out, right? Deion Sanders, I think, and I said this countless times on my show, he has such a reputation and such a legacy to uphold, right? And like, obviously, coaching at Colorado is not going to tarnish his legacy as a player, but it is something that's recent and it is something that people will hold over him if it doesn't work out. And I think he was too willing to allow other people who didn't have his legacy or interest in his success at hand. And so he made around 10 changes, or at least added 10 people, moved some people around, and there's a lot going on in Boulder. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the changes. I'm going to tell you who's doing what they accomplished at their previous stops, or what we know about them. But first, let's talk about, the most exciting and obvious one, Brennan Marion. Creator of the go-go offense, Brennan Marion is one of the best minds in college football when it comes to offense. He is innovative. He's exciting. He's young. He connects to people. He is just someone who I think is exactly what Colorado needed on offense. I honestly thought they were going to go the NFL route. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they went with Brennan Marion because he's innovative. He's exciting, right? His Sacramento State offense averaged 34 points per game, basically 33.8, which ranked third in the Big Sky. They were dominant on the ground. Their top running back had 1,200 yards rushing, 6.5 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. They had three running backs or four running backs with 500 yards or more. And then at UNLV, they were 14th, school record-setting offense at 36.2 points per game, averaged 251 yards rushing per game, which was the most in over 45 years. Listen, he has done a lot of great things on offense. Colorado's going to be running the ball a lot more. I like the running back room that they've put together. They've gone a mixture of transfers, also added a couple recruits here and there. And I'm going to be honest, I was a little concerned about the running back room, but I feel like the more people they add, the more confident I am. So Brennan Marion is the big name. Let me highlight the guys who were out because there's 4. It's Pat Shurmur, who, from my understanding, is no longer coaching right now. I don't know if he maybe is moving to an analyst role, if he's just out of the game for now, but he was not introduced, or at least we didn't see him be introduced. Marshall Faulk is now the head coach at Southern, which is close to his hometown in Louisiana. Brett Bartolone is going to be the offense coordinator at Nevada, so he's going to be linking up with Jeff Choate over there. Corey Phillips is going to be the Memphis general manager. Corey Phillips was handling recruiting for Colorado. Obviously, he shoulders a lot of the blame for what went wrong, and I think, it's only fair, right? Coach Prime was out with cancer and had a lot of personal things he was dealing with, and so Corey Phillips was kind of the face of last year's roster, I guess you could say, and it didn't work out. And then they also lost Brandon Reyes, who's a strength and conditioning coach now at Florida. AJ Smith is another interesting name. Colorado hasn't really had a designated quarterback guy, I guess you could say. Like, I think Pat Shurmur worked with them, and I think Sean Lewis worked with them. But AJ Smith is regarded as one of the best offensive minds in the XFL, UFL space. He's really young. He's currently... he helped lead the Houston Roughnecks to a 7-3 record in 2023. They were one of the top offenses in the XFL, was with the San Antonio Brahmas in 2024 with Wade Phillips. They made a championship run, and they had injuries all over the place, so it kind of, I guess, showcases what he could do creatively. Let's just say he's no longer with San Antonio, but he is expected to sort of be he's with the Battlehawks. So He's serving in the UFL as a coach for the Battlehawks, and he's also coaching quarterbacks for Colorado once that season rolls around. It's very interesting that he's doing both, but hey, chase that bag, get that experience. Assistant quarterbacks coach, Justin Houlihan, I believe is his name. He was Sac State assistant tight ends. He's going to be working with the quarterbacks. Josh Niblett, Gainesville High School head coach. And Josh Niblett, I mean, he just oozes aura. And that's what the kids are calling like swagger these days, if you will. He gave a speech that I was just truly impressed with because it ended with a quote where it was like, you know what? This is what people need to remember. They thought they buried us, but they didn't know we were seeds, which kind of just is a great indicator of like Colorado. Everyone thinks they're done, right? Everyone thought they were down for the count, but they're going to rise up and they're going to turn from nothing into something, right? He was a Gainesville head coach in Alabama, I think it was. Yeah, Gainesville, Alabama. 45-9, Georgia. 2 regional titles, 2 appearances in the state championship. When he left, it was a huge hit for the school. He had an overall head coach overall record as a head coach is 236-58 in 22 seasons. And he's bringing energy. I think he brings recruiting connections, which Colorado needs. And I like the tenacity and sort of the swagger that he brought to the table in his introduction speech. Assistant tight end / fullbacks coach Kyle Wagner. He was an assistant running backs coach at Sac State. So Brennan Marion brings over another one of his guys. Chris Marv, which was announced a while back. He was a Virginia Tech. He's a Virginia Tech defensive coordinator in 2024. He's worked with linebackers. He's now the linebackers coach. Defensive backs coach, Aaron Fletcher. So I would say Kevin Mathis has been demoted. He's made to the Nichols coach. He was the quarterbacks coach, and now he's just working with the Nichols solely. Aaron Fletcher comes in from Abilene Christian, where he's associate head coach, co-defense coordinator, has produced a lot of talent, has developed a lot of really impressive players. And I think Colorado needed to go in a different direction, right? I just feel like that's just sort of how things go sometimes, right? You really hope that things work out, but at the end of the day, it doesn't always work out. And so he's a native of Austin, Texas. He's a guy that, I mean, he's developed some really, really good players. Jim Thorpe Award semifinalist Allie Green, the 6th, I believe is what it is, or the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Caleb Evans, and then Tulsa's first NFL draft pick in a decade in 2020, Reggie Robinson. And then obviously he's also had some success at Missouri, Ennis Rakestraw, who was a 2nd-round pick. So this guy knows how to recruit. He knows how to develop. And I expect the corners, which I thought they would be really good last year. I thought they would be one of the best position groups in the Big 12, or I thought they'd be one of the top corner groups in the Big 12. They were not that. Then they have a new director of recruiting, Rashad Rich, who's at Penn State. He was an assistant recruiting coordinator there. Listen, anytime you can get a guy with a lot of experience who was at a big program, brings a lot to the table, I think it's a big deal, right? And I think he's going to have his hands filled. But to me, this shows like, hey, you are invested in recruiting. And I'm not saying Colorado wasn't invested in recruiting before, but I think the efforts that they're putting in now are a little bit different than what we have seen in the past. He fills the position that was previously held by Darius Darden-Box, who was promoted to the director of player personnel. He's a recruiting coordinator for personnel at Penn State, was a scout in the CFL for Saskatchewan in 2017. And then he was also had to spend some time with the Chicago Bears. So his whole career is based off of talent evaluation and finding the right people. And Colorado needs every bit of that. So there is that. And then the final, I would say, new hire, if you will, is Peter Warwick Jr. He was a recruiting analyst for UCLA. He is now in a similar role at Colorado. If you guys don't remember Peter Warwick, I mean, Florida State was where he, I would say, made his living, if you will. This is one of the few times where I feel like Deion Sanders has tapped into his Florida State roots and brought in a guy from Florida State, Peter Warwick Jr., 1st-round pick out of Florida State, 4th overall. Played for the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Las Vegas Gladiators, the Montreal Alouettes, California Redwoods, Bloomington Extreme, and then the Cincinnati Commandos in 2011. He was a BCS national champion, All-American, 2-time All-ACC, has worked with, like I said, UCLA. He's done a little bit of everything, and I think he's going to help Colorado in another way in recruiting, and tapping into different pipelines that they don't maybe have just yet. Promotions, like I said, Darius Darden-Box is now the director of recruiting. Johnny Mack went from assistant running backs coach to running backs coach or co-running backs coach. Role changes, which are guys who are either demoted or promoted. Kevin Mathis demoted. He is now with the Nickels. Andre Hart was the linebackers coach. He's been demoted to assistant linebackers coach, and now assistant running backs coach. Jock Upton was assistant defensive. He was DPP. So it's one of those things where I like the changes that Coach Prime's making. He's bringing in guys with college football experience. He's bringing, which Colorado badly needed. These guys can recruit. These guys could develop. And I expect Colorado to be a little bit more thorough when it comes to every aspect of coaching, right? This upcoming season. So we'll see how these changes impact the team. And when we come back, Coach Prime is finding players and people are upset. And I got a message for you guys. Y'all need to relax. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is a Super Bowl 60 in FanDuel. This is Super Bowl 60, excuse me. And FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special time offer in time for the biggest game of the year. So it's a perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for FanDuel, or for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's talk Deion Sanders finding players. It is currently the biggest topic in college football, it feels like, and for arguably one of the dumbest reasons ever. I think people don't realize that this is a widespread thing. But as we saw in the video of Coach Prime introducing the staff and the rules, Colorado is going no nonsense. He's saying, if you guys are going to be paid like professional athletes, and this is my stance on it as well, if you're going to be paid like a professional athlete, then act like it, right? If you're going to be paid to represent this school, this is your job, and you will do it correctly. Shout out to the guys who got in trouble during the bye week last year. So these are some of the fines. If you're late to practice, $500. If you don't go to practice, which I didn't even realize was happening, $2,500. If you're late to a meeting or film session, $400. No show to a meeting or film session, $2,000. Late to conditioning, $1,000. No show to conditioning, $1,500. Late to treatment, $1,000. No show to treatment, $1,500. Public violation of team rules is $1,000 to $2,500. Public or social misconduct, $2,000 to $5,000. Now, I think a lot of people are up in arms about this because there's still this mindset, and I'm going to get to this with Jordan Seaton. There's this mindset that they're kids and they're like, oh, they don't know any better. It's like, no. Even when they weren't being paid, they were getting a free education. They were getting a lot of free stuff, right? Your job as a college football player has always been to adhere to the rules, to follow along what the coaches ask at all times. You are comped. You get free gear, which another rule. Don't wear your gear. Didn't realize that had to be said. Don't wear gear from other programs. Excuse me. Didn't realize that had to be said. But there was like this common like coddling of college athletes where it's like, oh, they don't know any better. Like, why are you going so hard on them? These are professional athletes. These are semi-pro athletes, if you will, if you don't want to call them pros. They need to be held accountable. And Colorado had issues last year with guys doing like, it's one of those things where things don't have to become a rule until it happens or that rule is violated, right? The best example is I've helped people rent out homes before where I sort of just meet with the potential tenants and it's like, hey, like, let me introduce myself. Like I'm representing the landlord and blah, 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 like all this. And it's like in the lease that people are having to sign, it has things like no fish tanks. And it's like, okay, that's so niche. Why no fish tanks? It's like, well, because somebody's fish tank exploded and damaged the wall. Another rule, don't park on the lawn, because you know why? Because people were parking on the lawn and they messed up the lawn, right? All of these are rules because they have happened and because the program has felt like, hey, this stuff happens too frequently. and we need to change it. So I'm not mad at Colorado for really sticking up for themselves as a program, and I'm not mad at them for treating these guys as pro athletes, because they are virtually pro athletes, whether people want to admit it or not. And I think the best way for these guys, especially the guys who have off-field issues and stuff like that, this is the perfect way for them to learn accountability, responsibility, and respect. Because if you can't, and I think Brennan Marion said this on his speech, if you can't show up and just do things when this is like the one time in your life when everything's given to you, you're not ready for the real world. This is preparing them to be ready for the real world, and it's strengthening the culture, right? Because I think it holds guys accountable, and I think it sets the team up as a whole for success. So I don't mind Coach Prime finding people. I think it's necessary, obviously. And I think people who are like, oh, they're student athletes, they shouldn't have to do. Listen, it's if you want to get paid, if you want to be treated like a pro and get paid for your NIL, there are consequences to your actions. It's as simple as that. So this constant coddling of like, oh, don't, no, they need to be punished if need be. And it is what it is. Like, they are all really good professional, like they're all good athletes. They all are holding up roster spots, and they all want to prove something. So prove it, right? You can't just be a pro whenever you want. You can't be a pro on the field, but not off the field, right? It goes hand in hand. There's very few guys who make it in the NFL that are not following the rules on and off the field. And those who are the exceptions, they are generational talents, right? It's very rare that someone is not a generational talent and they get unlimited chances, a la Johnny Manziel. I think you could name a lot of guys, and I'm not going to go into just a bunch of names right here and start name dropping people, but like, it gets to a point where if you're not that guy where the team is willing to make exceptions for you, you better figure it out, right? And so Colorado really needs to be, these players really need to step it up. Obviously, a lot of this probably hasn't happened yet, but that tells me it was happening. So we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jordan Seaton's departure, what it means for Colorado, why I wasn't surprised at the very end, and just where he ended up and all that jazz. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Listen, we put the same passion over at Mazda into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it takes to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. So Mazda, go check them out. They remind us of what it takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing every detail, giving it that extra fire and the grit and that I never quit. So Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's talk about Jordan Seaton. It has officially happened. He committed to LSU, and that seemed to be the calling. Like, I felt like we saw that coming after Texas took the Wake Forest kid, right? Texas was in the mix, but I think Texas is wanting to spend their money a little bit differently, right? Jordan Seaton is getting $3 to $4 million at LSU, so congrats to him there. Lane Kiffin is putting together a really good transfer portal class, right? They have the number one portal class according to 24/7 Sports. They have Sam Levitt, who's the number one player at quarterback, and I think the number one player in the portal in general. They have, I think it's Princewell. I don't know how to say his last name. The Ole Miss pass rusher, really good. Number one edge rusher in the portal. And then they have Jordan Seaton, the number one offensive tackle, right? LSU is going to be in the playoff next year. I'm certain of it, barring any catastrophic injuries to quarterbacks or something. But I will say this until I'm blue in the face. I don't like how Jordan Seaton left the program. Now, do I care that he went to the SEC or that he went to go get money? I don't, right? Because the rules in college football right now are so messed up. It's like, why would you not take advantage, right? I mean, I get like people want these athletes to be loyal to coaches and programs, but there is a system in place that doesn't enforce any rules. The rules are super unclear, and it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, if you're not establishing what the rules are, we're not going to follow what your fake rules are just because you want us to preserve feelings or something, right? I don't care that Jordan Seaton went to get his bag. I'm happy for him. I think I think he could have left on better terms. I think his uncle seemed to be very heavily involved, which I forgot which coach said it recently, but it seems like the worst people in sports, or at least college football right now, are the family members who are doubling as an agent and have no idea what they're doing. Luckily, a lot of these guys who have them as agents are good enough players to sort of not succumb to their flaws in the agent field. But listen, if you're Jordan Seaton, go get your bag, go become a first round pick, go do your thing. I would have liked an apology for Colorado, simply just, or it doesn't even have to apologize, right? I think it would have been nice if he didn't like sort of deceive the graphics and video people. It would have been nice if he didn't hold up the charade of like, I'm a Buff through and through. I'm never leaving. Like, why would I leave? Like recruiting his cousin to Colorado, which they got him anyway, which is the weirdest thing. But Jordan Seaton's going to LSU. I think if you're a Colorado fan, it's like disappointing because obviously he was going to be Colorado's next first round pick. It would have been the second under Coach Prime. But you brought in 4 offensive tackles via the portal. Look at Leon Bell. Look at Taj White to start at left tackle. You could even move Larry Johnson over there if you wanted. So you have a lot of options at left tackle. You also, I mean, you're in good position with the future. Xavier Payne out of Florida is a 4-star recruit who I think is going to be really good eventually for the Buffs. So they are building this offensive line for life without Jordan Seaton. It felt pretty obvious when they started bringing in offensive tackles all of a sudden that something was up. But best wishes to Jordan Seaton. I hope he crushes it in Baton Rouge. And it's just one of those things where it's like, would have loved to see him finish his career out in Boulder. But again, if you get life-changing money, it's hard to fault you for taking it. I just think he could have handled his exit a little bit better. But that's just me. Again, it doesn't matter what I have to say or how I feel like he exited, but excuse me, I had to sneeze there. But Jordan Seaton is now an LSU Tiger. Colorado is going to be turning to Leon Bell, Taj White. They brought in a lot of options at left tackle, and I'm excited. I think the offensive line could have the potential to be Colorado's best under Coach Prime. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. It'll be interesting to see how Jordan Seaton's time in Baton Rouge pans out. Either way, I'll have you covered every step of the way. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs.